In this section here, we're going to go over the Start menu for Windows 10. We're just going to go from the bottom up, and then we'll talk about the Start screen over here afterwards. So here we have all of our apps. Applications are really synonymous with software programs. You have your universal apps, which you'll actually find over here in your Microsoft Application Store. Then you have your conventional apps. Your conventional apps, you just go to like Google Chrome and actually, or really a browser, not just Google Chrome. So it could be Internet Explorer or any browser, and you're actually installing a software package from a site that you download it from. And really, that could be any software program. Looking through here, you'll see all of your software programs here, all your applications. Also, too, if there's like a software suite, sort of like Microsoft Office, or I have OpenOffice in this situation, I can actually hit this down arrow here and see all the software programs in the suite. Like I have my Writer, Calc, which is basically like the spreadsheet. This would be like the Microsoft Word document. So I can actually find all this stuff here as well. If I ever want to uninstall any of these applications, I can also right-click and just uninstall it. Like I will never use Skype, so I can just uninstall that right now, and it's actually as simple as that as far as the universal apps go. By far, probably the most helpful feature that I can show you here is how you can also just start typing in right on the Start screen, and you can actually look for applications in that fashion. For instance, Calculator, the Windows Calculator program, if I just start typing in C-A-L-C into the Start screen, I'll probably have to do it outside the application view. Back at this view, I should be able to click here and then put C-A-L-C, and there we go. See, Calculator just comes right up for me to launch. Really, it's going to be the same way if I look for any other program like Candy Crush. Even though it's right in front of me, I can type in Candy, and what do you know, there's Candy Crush Saga right there in front of me. So a very helpful feature to know, and that's really just clicking the Start menu and just typing in your software program right there. So definitely helpful. So here's your power option, which really this is the same as in any other Windows version, to where you just click on here and you have a couple of options like shut down, restart, and sleep. Sleep's probably the one that people are at least familiar with. You basically like write all your running files to disk, and it just sort of goes into hibernation mode until you wake it back up. That's really the same in any other Windows version, at least recent Windows version. Over here in Settings, so Settings is basically your control panel. And I know a lot of people are turned off by Settings because our well-loved control panel is not here anymore. Well, if you actually type up here, and for some reason this one login account isn't able to do it, but I'll probably show you another example in another video on my other account. But I can actually type in Control Panel here, and you should literally see Control Panel pop up. So this search window up here on the top right-hand corner is definitely your friend. It's a very easy way of actually getting whatever utility you need. So the Control Panel, like you're used to in Windows 7, is here. If you want to change your background, you can merely type in background, and you should get that as an option. So very, very powerful tool here. I'm going to go through a couple of settings here just real quick inside of settings. So like in system settings, I can change parameters inside of Windows 10, such as like the color of the windows in the start bar. I can, or here I'm actually changing like my display settings and such. The personalization up here is actually where you change your you can change like the color of your taskbar. You can also change your background. Like if I wanted a different picture here, I could definitely choose like this picture right here if I wanted to, and lo and behold, my background has changed to that setting there. So if I go back, I'm going to set it back to the way it was, but you can basically change the layout and personalization here. System, where I was. This is more for like looking at your display settings and changing anything of display. There's other features here, like as far as like when your system goes into hibernation mode or sleep, you can actually set that here as well. And there's many other options, but we're limited on time here, so I won't go through it all. Devices, like this is where you can go and actually take a look at your printers and such. And again, I could always type printer right up here, and I would actually, it would search for the printer icon right there. So it's definitely a helpful setting to go up there to find a setting. Accounts, this is where I can actually change information on my user accounts or make a new one. Really, it's the exact same thing as Ruben Fredericks up here in the start menu. Changing account settings, accounts, really the same option right there. So the privacy down here. So if you want to disable some of the data mining features, or Windows definitely does, keep track on you. Like Cortana keeps track on you. It almost alters itself it has a database that actually keeps information about you on to try to help the user experience, but also too, I'm sure Microsoft does use this, to assist in their advertising for you. But if you do not like some of that, you can actually go and disable some of these features, or not use Cortana at all if you want. If you do disable some of these settings, the one thing to keep in mind is that while disabling some of these privacy settings to where it's more private for you, you may disable some of the functionality of some of the apps. But if you're not really interested in the apps that it may disable, then you should really be fine. Update and security, this is definitely a pretty important section. So Windows updates with the home version of Windows 10. Updates actually just sort of run automatically. As long as you have an internet connection, it should download it when it needs to. And also it's probably going to update whenever you reboot. And you'll see right up here, last check today, 6:50 p.m. So it's actually checking everything. Windows Defender right here. This is the antivirus software for Windows. And if you go here, you'll see that it's actually up to date and running. As far as the question goes, should I use Windows Defender or should I use another antivirus software? I really think compared to a free antivirus software, Windows Defender is going to be pretty comparable to it. It's really probably going to give you about the same performance. There could be a few downfalls in Windows 10. I think Windows Defender, one of its biggest downfalls is it takes a little longer to scan. But really, some of the other free antivirus softwares are probably going to have similar issues as well. Now, if you actually pay for your antivirus suite, or if your internet service provider offers you one, I'd probably actually go ahead and go with one of those options. But if you really don't have an antivirus option, and you're not looking to pay for one, I think Windows Defender is going to be about as good as anything else. That should do it on Windows Defender. Down here in backup, backup's pretty important. I would definitely recommend for you to back up your files to a drive. And we currently have backup file history on. We also have already added our thumb drive to this, or our USB drive, whatever you want to call it, our removable storage drive right here. And if you go and look at more options here under backup options, right, back up. Okay, there we go. So you'll see that our thumb drive is included, that J drive that I just showed you right there. And you'll see that it's actually backing up my files every hour, and it's trying to keep as many files as it can so I have a history. And if you look down here, you'll see all these backup folders. And I asked the question in the class, what do these folders have in common? You'll see the C users RRFWI. Essentially, as far as your login account goes, most people tend to put their data either on their desktop or maybe in their documents folder, their downloads folder. Well, really all those folders are included into, are all under one folder. This is the login account I'm using, and you'll see all those folders right there. So that C users folder really is almost like your master folder for most of the files that you're probably accessing and saving. So definitely a good area to back up, and that's exactly what Windows 10 is doing here. I can also back up to a different drive if I wanted to, and just to kind of prove the concept here, I can actually go to the J drive here and file history, and I look at the RRFWI configuration, not configuration, data, C, users, and I'll actually see my desktop files right here. So there we go, my data is actually saved there. Another good practice that was brought up in class I would definitely recommend is maybe periodically ejecting one of these USB drives and maybe taking them off site, maybe give it to a well-trusted friend, or maybe put it in your storm cellar, or maybe keep it at your work, just in case anything ever happened to your whole house or your whole computer. At least you'd have your files somewhere else as well. So that can definitely be a good idea. Maybe swap out 2 different USB drives every now and then, as far as your backups are concerned. And anything else we'll go over under backups, we'll probably do in future classes. So yeah, this is update and security here. I think that's the... Oh, one other thing too, if you ever have just severe issues with Windows, and I didn't actually mention this one in class, there's this reset this PC option. Basically what this does, it almost whitewashes your Windows 10 to where it's almost like it was installed fresh. So one of the downfalls if you were to do this is you would actually have to go and probably install your apps over again, reorganize everything the way that you had it. But if, let's say, Windows just came really slow, maybe it got infected by a virus, you just can't get it off, this may be a viable option for you to where you can blow everything back to how it was and kind of start fresh with Windows. It's almost like reinstalling Windows. There's 2 different options there. There's an option where you can save, remove apps, but keep your personal files. So it should keep all your files still, like on your C drive, or like my PowerPoint documents still stay there if I did this. Remove everything just wipes it all to where it's almost like you just reinstalled everything. All the files are gone. Either way, if you do ever choose one of these options, I would make sure to have a good backup for that. Definitely a good idea. So going back here, and so we went through settings. We'll probably go for File Explorer here once we go through the taskbar. Most used, these are just your most used apps that you happen to use more often. Getting started can definitely be a good utility to use if you're totally new to Windows 10. Up here, this is my login account, and let's just look at change settings. So I can go down to family and other users here, and I can actually add another family member. It can be a local user account, or it can be an email address, like a Hotmail email address. It has to be a Microsoft email address if you associate an account with an email address. If I add a family member here, and one lady brought up, well, what happens if I just don't want to use user accounts? Well, that's actually impossible in Windows 10, but what you can do is actually, and right here I'd say, like, I don't want to add an email. I would just put their name, and whenever I did that, next, back, cancel, don't, doesn't have an email address. That option right there, I'm going to go back one more time. So if you want to add an account where you don't really want to associate anything with Microsoft, Hotmail, or you just don't want to use a Microsoft account, you do add as an adult or child. I'm guessing it's going to be adult. Person I want doesn't have an email address. That's going to make a local user account. You put in what you need to here. Then I should be able to hit next, back, see. Let me try this one more time. I don't have this person's sign-in information, so I'm going to just bypass this altogether. Add a user without a Microsoft account. Here we go. And then right here I'd put a name. I just wouldn't really put a password, so I'd just do like John Doe, for instance. Really, or if I just put user, you don't have to put a password in here. And see, I just made another user account that I can just log into. You may want to give an administrator account as well, but you can make a user account without an email address associated with it. Back up here to the Hotmail. So I can also detach Hotmail really from this account as well and make another account just the way I did before. So let's go ahead and just get off of the user account here for a bit, and I think we've went over a lot of these start options. Again, I'll go over File Explorer here in just a bit. Let's go over these different. Let's go over the start screen over here. So we have different groups here, and you can actually name these groups whatever you want. Also, too, these little applications here, these are called tiles. They're really just applications being represented by tiles. If you notice, some of these tiles are actually moving around, like the news tile. These are called live tiles, where they're basically just updating actively to show you news events or the weather or your email. You can always turn these off if you want to. Like turn live tile off. I just turned it off to where it shows an icon, and I can always turn it back on too if I want. You can also resize these icons as well. So if I want my news icon to be really big because I want to make sure I can see this, I can definitely resize it to like large, and it's going to be a lot bigger at this point. Let's see, live tile. It should update with the live tile here in a bit, but you should see that it actively goes. You can also delete tiles off of this to your heart's content. Like if you don't want a lot of this stuff up here, like I don't want Katana, I can just unpin it. You can add new applications as well. Like if I want Calculator up in Life at a Glance, or let's say down here in MS Office I want Calculator, I could just drag and drop whatever application over here that I want right into the any group that I have within the start screen. And you can also rename the apps, like I've said earlier. Right-clicking these apps to talked about resizing them. Here we go. So the news icon finally is updating. It's like it's showing the musician who died. So let's just take a look at the news app, the email app, and also the weather app. News app here. One other thing too, you can always change your news feeds. Like if I don't really care about listening to global politics, I can disable that from here. If I don't want to listen about U.S. news or money news, I can enable or disable that. You can also look for new news feeds as well. Like if I look for KOCO Channel 5, I can add KOCO as a feed here, which is great. So you can alter this to what you want, or maybe I want Science Daily. That's a science site I go to sometimes. I can add that, and I get to see the Science Daily feed. So you can actually also alter this to your liking. One other thing too, I forgot to mention this in the class. We had so much to go over. There's a smiley face in a lot of the applications. That's your feedback, so you can actually rate it and let them know what you think. Microsoft is usually open to listening about what the end user thinks about an application, so you can also take advantage of that. And there's some other sections here, like you can look at news videos and whatnot. Let's go ahead and X out of news here for a second, and let's talk about weather. Weather's pretty straightforward. You just need to put a location, and you should get weather reports from that location. You can also add new locations too if you want to. So if I go to home, or there's also like a Doppler radar, or not Doppler, but a more or less it's a live radar of the general area. You can also add new locations in here. News events. There we go. Launch location. So I added Tulsa during the class. Just an example. So you can add other locations as well. That's pretty helpful. Also too, if you just don't like that app, or maybe you like Weather Channel a lot, you can also just go and install the Weather Channel app, which I'll talk about that a little bit later whenever we get into the actual app store. Mail too, so you can associate a mail account with Microsoft. If you use any of the mailing features any of the mailing features I'm going to show you here a little later on, you will need to enable this mail feature right here. And really, whenever you do add an account, an email account, it can really be, it doesn't have to be Microsoft. It could be like Gmail or Yahoo. The mail application is completely fine using one of those services as well. Like, for instance, I have Gmail right here. So definitely helpful there. And let me just glance at my walk through here. I think we covered about everything in the start menu, and probably a little more than the class. Went through settings. Gear symbol. I want to show you that real quick. Privacy settings, and there we go. Okay, great. So one last thing I forgot to show you guys. So if you do go into settings here and you kind of lose your way, forget where you are, the gear can always be helpful. This will actually take you right back to the very starting location. And again, I'll actually have just another session here real quick. I'm just showing you the search feature for settings as well. And on to the next section.